Hello YouTube, Sim Endgame here, bringing you a deck breakdown of my third place regional deck, Dragonic Overlord to the end. Now, to start with, you can see, start with the starter is Conroe, and unlike a lot of decks you'll see, I run two. Now, majoritively, in the decks I've played before, like builds of Kagero, I tend to run two, simply because it is such a broken card. The idea of counterblasting one and searching for whatever you like in whatever scenario is amazing. So just taking out a grade 1 for it seems like a logical option. It doesn't mess up the ratio that much. And I was iffy in using it in the end build because you need two face up. I'll get to that later. The only non-trigger alternative would be the Doombringer Griffin, which is your counterblast one. You can try two of your rear guards, so you can choose itself if you like. Search for one the end. But because it's lacks in draw power, I seriously doubt you should use it, in honesty. Even though it's a bit of consistency, you're going to run like 7 or 8 grade 3s anyway, so you shouldn't need to have a searcher. Obviously the 4 heals. Right, now I used to run 6 crit, 6 draw. I've tried 8 crit, 4 draw. I've tried a lot of ratios of triggers. I even once before even tried the stand build. Now, a stand build would be different to the one I use. It would be, you'd try and build a deck around using them. So you want to restand something that can hit a higher number or has some kind of threatening ability like something like Tejas. But as I don't use that, I don't tend to go for stands. But I've tried it before, it's not my play style. I don't really like it. I like the card, but not the deck. Now, the reason you run a lot of draws is because, as I said already, the end lacks a lot of draw power. So just going into those draw triggers, it helps you find the end quicker, it helps you go through the deck quicker. It gets you the pluses you need to guard what we call the niggly 5 format. There's a lot of these niggly little 5s that go to the Vanguard and you just need to drop a card, so it helps there. But you need the crits. Now, the end, restanding with a crit, is very threatening. You need to have crits in there to push them as quickly as you can, because you can't... The end is not a long game build. It's something you need to do like early mid game to get an advantage. It's constant threat, and you've just got to do what you can to speed up the game. Right, now onto my grade 1s. You of course have the 4 perfect guards, and they are very necessary in this format because there's so many threatening Vanguards out there. Just MLB, the end mirror matches, some you really need to guard, but because I've got a lot of draw triggers as well, you need to be able to, you have them to discard as fodder for that. 8k beat sticks, again, are very crucial in this, when I say this format, I mean the format that's pre-set 11. So, yeah. So it's like cross rides and everything like that. So 8k beat stick needs to be put behind the 10ks to 18. It also needs to be put behind the 12k swingers to really abuse those 10k vanguards that people...
Or rear guards.
Yeah, all rear guards. All rear guards. And I'll skip Gojo just for the moment. Promise is such an amazing and crucial card for the build. It's unbelievably crucial. You don't just take one.
That's your opinion, yes.
Because my search will always be Eremo. Unless I have the normal Overlord, because I would search a bar, because when I cross ride, I'll hit 21. Otherwise, get Eremo. It really doesn't matter, because as soon as you find the end, you're going to swing at a rear guard. If they can let it hit, they can let it hit. But
it's not always the case.
It helps you, unless they cross ride, it's perfectly viable swinging at 17. So you scar draw, sort out your hand every turn. If they want to let it hit, they can. But it just ups that chance of the early game and the end as well. Promise, the reason I run 2 and not 1 is because, as I said, I search the normal Eremo. And it's rear guard pressure. It hits that 21k barrier. Or if you really need the end to hit because you have a second one in hand, you can search that and drop that. You just can't afford for one to go to damage. You need to find one in a game. So that's why you run 2, just in case you damage check it really, or need to guard with it or something like that, or get sniped because people do snipe it. But Gojo was the main thing that I was in and out and taking out because unfortunately, as much as you want to run the retirement build, you needed to hit numbers in this format, and Gojo is. If you have 3 reasons to use a card, you can't say no. It's the fact it's 7k, so it goes behind the 11ks to hit 18. It's the rest discard draw ability, so it's consistency. And let's try and think of the third one, because I did have 3 reasons. Thoughts, Aaron?
I can't remember what you were thinking. I don't know what you were thinking.
You don't know what I was thinking?
No.
How useful you are.
That's a good ride.
It's a good initial ride. Yeah, we'll go with that. That probably wasn't the third thing I was thinking of, but it's a good initial ride. Rest card draw. You get something out of your turn. It gets you out of grade locking ability situations where you're like, rest card draw. I did that against Aaron in the final 4, didn't I? I was grade locked on 2, so I went, okay, I had 2 Gojos, rest card draw. I had and then I attacked with grade 1, drove check grade 2. So I was 3 checks away. I wouldn't have found it. So yeah. Alternatives. I actually tried using these 2 before. You've got the Lizard Soldier Ropia and the less known Dragonic or Demonic Dragon Mage Moharaga, which that's basically used in a Lawkeeper build. You'll see it as you have 2 or less rear guard. Your opponent has 2 or less rear guards. It becomes a 10k boost. Which
how did you play it?
I played it. So should I mention it now? Regarding that or?
Right, what? I was going on the fact that
it's what?
Early.
The early.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I ran it simply to search with Conroe once I ride the damage unflipper. And yeah, so straight away, 19 is very likely to hit the damage unflipper, even more so than normal. And then as soon as I ride the end, it's 21. You're not going to guard that.
Ideally, it's 21.
And then it forced you to drop more hand because you didn't want me to hit a high number.
But it was very reliant on you going first.
Yep, that is very true.
As soon as you went second, your opponent had more field presence than you come your grade 3 ride, and it wasn't active.
But both these options, the normal arrow mode is such a better option. It's consistency. It's a higher number all the time, and yeah. But this is a very good card in a retirement-based build. If you search for, I'll probably use that in future builds where I have retirement options because it suddenly makes your Vanguard hitting 21, just 16 and then suddenly 21. It's like, okay.
What you have to do is search that out and then, Kimnara,
Berserk. The idea being, is I had that behind the Vanguard. I went Kimnara into Soul to put the or Gatling Claw, to retire a unit. My Vanguard then hits 21, and then Soul Blast it back out the other side with the Rearguard Promise. So it's just recycling the same unit. Kimnara retired something, added to the Soul, and it was Soul Blasted as a unit. That was probably the 3 things that I was trying to think of for that one. I think Gojo I just put in because of those reasons as before. But anyway, the 2 retirement units which you'll majoritively see are Demonic Dragon Mage Kimnara and Heat Now Salamander. Now, I've never liked Heat Now Salamander in the end build because you're adding to the deck and you need to find the end as quickly as possible. You don't and trigger as much as possible. You don't want to add stuff to the deck. The only good thing about it is you don't counterblast, so it's just a boost and hit a Vanguard. But it goes back to the deck. So it's a 1-for-1 trade, and it delays your opponent a little bit, so it slows down their game as well. But as it doesn't have much draw power, you'll find that a lot of this type builds won't have much rearguard booster presence. So yeah, it's not. I don't like the fact it's not on demand as well. But the end build does have counterblasting spare if you're not using the Overlord's effect. So this is why I liked using Kimnara originally, because it enabled me to. But with that build, I went for a lot of 10Ks, so I made a 10K wall. So I didn't use the 12K swinger. Because I made quite a unique build actually, which I'll get to later. So I snapped off anything that helped a 9K get to 16.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Or so the 9k, any booster beyond the 9ks, so they can't swing over anything.
The problem with that deck became
what?
you used your boosters for skills like that.
Yep, and then as I said, I lost them.
Couldn't hit 18 easy.
Yep. The alternative to Gojo that I was pondering as well, because 7k is all you needed, didn't matter what it was, the only alternative we had is Iron Tail. Iron Tail is your counterblast 1 at a K, but unless you're against a 10k Vanguard, 20k columns aren't necessary. And you're not exactly going to counterblast 3, you might as well use an Overlord effect to get to a 10k boost, get a 5k boost. Now, I'll get to that in a sec actually. Guard Griffin is you use it in the Guardian Circle, you counterblast 1, it becomes a 10k guard. I've seen people tech it, but you can't afford to keep these cards in your hand. You need cards that every card in this deck needs to be doing something. You can't. It's not a defensive deck; it's an offensive deck, so you can't afford to be playing defensively. But no, the last card is Dragon Dancer Lordies, I believe it's pronounced or something.
Okay.
Now this card, it goes along the whole kind of tool-less rear guards, and it gets an effect. This effect is it goes to a 9k attacker. Now I liked it because I could just drop it early game in front of my Conroe at the back left or something, and just niggle away. It's like a little niggle early game, and then I pull it back for a 6k boost because I had 12k swingers and 10k beats. It's 16. It's not a problem. I would seriously consider running this in future builds. It is a very good card if you're not sure what to run, but there are too many good options, unfortunately, that rule it out.
I wouldn't say there's too many good options. The main issue was when you ran that, you only had Bar as your main booster.
Yes.
Nothing else was boosting your rear guards to 16 and 18.
Yep. So
and Gojo had to be there.
Yeah. So any 9Ks I ran were just stuck, unfortunately. Yeah. Moving on to grade 2s, I am a firm believer that you have to max out anything you want to find. Now, one's a tech, so you need to, if you're running one or something, it needs to be searchable, really. Unless, of course, it's something that you really don't want to draw into unless it's a specific scenario. Like, I guess, a damage adder or something.
Yeah, no. Love my damage adders.
Yeah, I know. But someone who doesn't want to, who wants it as a tech to find, just to fill in. 2, something that you hopefully want to find in the game, but it's not something you need to find. 3 is something that you want to find and you should find in the game.
But there's better options or better things that you could find.
And the 4 one's always going to be the 8k beat stick. So,
Why are you talking about grade 1s and grade 2 lineup?
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying things like that are going to be at 4. So just be aware of what you're running. So I, for example, wouldn't do what a lot of people do and run Berserk Dragon, i.e. the Counterblast 2 Retire, because I have a certain strategy and I play that way. Bellicosity Dragon is your damage unflipper. When it hits the Vanguard, you unflip. If that is your ride, this is the main thing some people don't seem to get, but it's such a massive thing. If you ride Bellicosity Dragon, you can use Conroe's effect. You search for your Eremo or whatever you want, and then you attack. The likelihood that they're going to guard it is very small. It's like Blaster Blade in Royals. Because they search for MLB using it and things.
And then there's your Russ.
Yeah, unless you're us, in which case we guard for 10 once pass, and they're like, oh, well, I can't find my 1 MLB now.
I just want to stop you for a second, but this is funny. If you guys go back to the, Crossride discussion? I think it was a Crossride discussion.
Yeah, probably.
I think you went on a massive rant of how you hate people running Bellicosity in the deck, and it's a stupid decision and people should be shot. Well, maybe not that extreme, but along those lines.
Right.
I'm linking that at the end of this video.
No, you're not. God damn it. Right, so the reason being is because I had a different strategy of always keeping 2 face-ups. So I never used Conroe's effect until the 3rd damage. So I always had 2 up. Unless, of course, I didn't have the end, in which case I would use Conroe's and not care. Mm-hmm. That's another thing, guys. If you don't have the end, then feel free to use Conroy's effect to find an air or something, your air to start trying to find it. Or your bar if you were going for the cross ride. But yeah, so because it was a different build, that's a different argument. But it was because the reason I said that is because people's argument was, well, if the ends effect gets off, then I can unflip it. And I was like, that's not an argument. That's just, if you get it off, then you're going to have the advantage. You're going to probably win. But no, it's because they also, they ran like one Berserk Dragon. They were like, I could unflip after. Just no. I run 4 of it because it's my ideal ride. It's something I need. If I find it, I use Conroy's effect, and then I unflip it, and then I ride the end afterwards. Oh look, 17k Vanguard, 2 face up. If I find it, I find it, and then game on. And then the rest of them, obviously, you run the 4 12k swingers. They are amazing. They get 20k columns off. You got your 18k columns more accessible, and there was you to even drop triggers, which I've done before in hard situations to hit. Just past 16, so 17. And the 10k beats just because. Just because you can niggle away. You can do that thin row at the front that can swing over whatever you want. So, as I said, Berserk Dragon, the reason I'd use it is because my counterblasts are fully the end, and when I hit 5, Overlord. Just burn those eternal flames. That's fine. You get the extra 5k, done. The rest of it is getting the promise off on the side, the Aero behind the Vanguards, consistency of Gojo. It's a really basic build. You shouldn't overcomplicate something that's simple and start doing different ratios. Understand why people use Berserk Dragon, but you're going to have 1 counterblast left because you use the end if you think about it. If you haven't used Conro, then that's 3, and then Berserk, that's 5. I'd rather leave those 3 face up, or at least try and flip them face up later on after I use my Conro, to then make Overlord active. I've activated Overlord's effect twice in a game before because I just couldn't get the end's effect off. So I used Overlord's effect, unflipped it, and then when I hit 5, I've done it again. It's underrated effect, that. But yeah, anyway, we have 2 other 10Ks available to us. Crossrock Gar, again a standard 10K, so you can very well, in a non-Overlord build, get a 10K line up there. And the other one is, if it's left unboosted, it loses 2k, is it? Yeah, 2k. But if it is boosted, you can, or in general, you can counterblast 1 to add a k. So it can help those 20k comms off if you really want to. But it has to have a booster behind it, so I don't like it because of that. It's Dragon Armored Knight. You do have a third one, in fact, but it's not the best of cards, but I think we had a massive debate on it.
Yeah, we've gone back and forth with this card.
Prowling Dragon Stricken. Now that is somewhat of a ride break. When you ride it,
go with the first one first.
Okay, I'll just read the effect rather than just going off the top of my head. It literally can't attack, so you don't get your drive.
Vanguard.
In the Vanguard. Sorry, correction. But when it is attacked, if they don't have a boosted unit, it gets an extra 5k, so they have to swing over 15 all of a sudden. So they have to drop boosters or else they're not getting over, unless they get triggers or something. But when another Kagero rides this unit, it gets 5k and a crit. So if you wait a turn, neg yourself 1 because you're not drive checking, and ride over it, you get 5k and a crit. I like it. I like some ideas. I like the Yakusha thing of the retire unit ride over it. Oh look, I've got a crit all of a sudden. But you can't, as I say, keep emphasising, it has no draw power. You need to drive check. It's so essential a lot of the time.
Well, that's one reason I don't like it. The second reason, oh yeah, your Vanguard gets 5k and a crit in your next turn. That's great. But you've missed out on a turn of attacking.
Which would have done 1 damage anyway.
Yeah, so you're just making up for that damage you would have done in the first place.
Yeah, that's a very good way of looking at it.
And don't say that you can ride the end and restand it with that crit. Not going to happen.
Yeah, not going to happen because, again, as I said...
You're wasting that drive check to find it unless you started with 2, which is going to be very unlikely.
Yeah.
You're not going to have it.
And even if I did, then it's obviously if you have 2 the ends and not the damage unflipper, don't activate Conroy's effect. Just ride the end straight away, and off you go. People used to run the Soul Charger, the Flame Edge Dragon.
Did they?
Yeah, some people used to. It's simply to try and Soul Charge the normal Overlord randomly. If it hits, they're like, oh, cross ride. And also, but the main reason is because people spammed Promise.
Yes.
So they needed the extra Soul Blast. Otherwise, you can only do it twice.
That makes sense.
As grade 1 and 2. Unless, of course, you do what I do and re-ride, which I'll get to later. I'm cool at that.
Shut up!
You got the Dragonic Burger, which is your interceptor. But because...
Burger. It's German, it is Burger.
It's your interceptor, but as it relies on the 8K B-stick being behind it, really, to hit that 16, I don't really like it, but feel free to chuck it into the tech, but I personally would rather go for the consistency of that lineup I've got there. And finally, you've got Tejas, which is it can swing at a booster in the same column.
As you said.
But as I said earlier, it's more of a stand build, so I wouldn't recommend it for something like this. Okay, and finally you've got your grade 3s, which is obviously, obviously, because I have tried other options. Dragonic Overlord, the end. You run it at 4 because you need to find it. You need to find a Persona Blast. So, yeah. And as your backup / pre-ride for cross ride, and a relatively good, I'd say, rearguard presence. So it's always 11k, Dragonic Overlord. So the idea is to ride the end and drop Overlord as a rearguard, or ride Overlord and go for the cross ride. But see, this is where people get a bit funny with me, because if I had both of them in my hand, I would always go for the end first and drop Overlord as a rearguard, because the likelihood of you can swing over 11k on the rearguard if you want, but I want the end active as soon as possible, because the amount of games you'll win by going, I drive check, oh look, I found the end. So really, in your first drive check, yep. Unfortunately, the way we've decided to go against it is we don't tend to guard it the first time, just because
even if the conditions are met of 2 damage, he's ridden the end.
Face up, you're very unlikely to have it. It's just I'm lucky that I do.
And even if they have it, you let it through, because you'll be on low damage because it's early game. Even if they crit you or whatever, chances are you'll survive and try and make your way back from there.
Yeah, it's fine. But so other than that, of course, because I try and find those promises as well, any crits would go to that column, and 21, off you go. But yeah, so it's also rearguard presence. Again, draw power. Because they don't have the draw power, you need to drop whatever units you can. Against decks like Vermilion or anything else that has more, field advantage than you, quicker field advantage, they can swarm the field, they're going to get rid of your rearguards. And so many situations you'll see in Overlord decks where they don't have any presence because Vermilion's effect's gone off and they've gone, well, I'm on cross ride, but they're hitting numbers, so that doesn't help. It's nice hitting 21, but if you really want to, you can search for a promise behind the Vanguard if you have it. In which case, I referenced what I said earlier. If you're in a scenario at the end of the game where you have a copy of the end in hand and you don't think you're going to win, you don't win, sorry, you don't think you're going to hit, because if they have 5 in hand, 6 in hand, re-ride the end and use the promised Soul Blast on the rear guard or behind the Vanguard. That, combined with the Eternal Flames of Dragonic Overlord, is how a lot of my games seem to end. Because I give up on the effect and go for Overlord. Even if I don't have the counterblast available for the end, you're hitting a new number, you're breaking a barrier on 2 columns, that's an extra 10k, and that could win you the game. Now the alternatives I went for, Amber Dragon Eclipse, because of my strategy of always having 2 face up on the grade 3 ride, if I find velocity, I would use Conroe, if not, I don't. Straight away I can counterblast 2 and threaten you with 2 retirements, or the end hitting. And it went quite well, but it's 10k, unfortunately. And I'd have to run the grade 2 in there to get it to 11 to make it worthwhile. So it's a good idea. I like it. I like the card. but it kind of kills the deck after that point. You're not really going to drop anything that early either.
Yeah.
And it's a initial act as well. So it's not an on-hit counterblast 2 effect, in which case it'd be a lot better and more people would use it. Now, the best combo I've found as an alternative Vanguard is Dragonic Lawkeeper. Combined with the earlier card I mentioned of Ropia.
If you can find it.
Yeah, I can find it, it's fine.
To the bottom. Right at the bottom.
Right. I wonder if I can see it. Combined with that was released in the same box, I believe.
No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. The Lawkeeper was extra booster 3, and that was booster 4. Set 4. But it was supposed to be some kind of support for it, because they're both 2 or less rear guards.
Let's be support for blacks, I think.
So the idea being, early game, Ropia behind your Vanguard, it swung for a nice number. They dropped their hand, and then late game as a push, I would ride Lawkeeper, counterblast. They lose their rear guards. I then hit a 23 as a number, because it gets an extra 3k if they have 2 or less in itself. So cross rider not, that's barrier breaking. And then I swing 4 columns on the side, and people just didn't see it. They're like, what? What's going on? But that was the build that I tried with a 10k wall and retirement. So I tried to slow their game down and then suddenly just destroy their field. And they kept negging one every time I did it. It was just a nice alternate Vanguard to try and go for.
But
it's 10k and people abused it.
That's saying the least there.
Yeah, to say the least. And it wasn't too good early game. You'd rather sit with an 11k normal Overlord. Eventually do it. It's a very well supported archetype of the Overlord in Kagero. So it's difficult to stray from it at the end of the day. Okay, now in regards to the strengths of the deck, the idea of my progress throughout the card fight would be, obviously you start with the conro and you move it back to either the back left or the middle. It depends who goes first in the scenario. I can't exactly say the optimal. And Gojo would be your go-to card. So after one turn, you'd take the 1 damage. Then you'd go, I'm gonna now search for Error Mode beyond the Vanguard, or if I have another The End in hand, search for a promise, go for it. But your ride on that turn should be Velocity Dragon. So it'll enable you to use your Conroe effect to search for whatever. If you don't activate it, always put it to the back left, because you can always put a 12k swinger in front of it and it will hit a number rather than swing for 15 or something. Well, of course, you can put it in front of an Overlord or something like that. The attack would hit, hopefully, unflip, ditch and draw. You've now made your hand quite nice. Then another turn goes by. Oh look, lovely. I'm on 2 damage, because they're going to do 1 damage to you this turn, because you might not have this optimal field, but it's good enough to spread your field thin. Of course, this is just me talking about deck. You won't actually have an Overlord at this point of the game. So yeah, and then afterwards, you got the end. After a while, hopefully you might be able to abuse that 10k Vanguard with a 20k column, and you'll find that you will hopefully find a promise. Be it, if you find your second Conroe, you can go, I need a perfect guard to my hand, or I need to find that promise. So the amazing thing about running a Conroe is it's like I'm running 3 promises or 5 perfect guards, or even another 10k guard. The amount of times I've just used it as a 10k guard. But yeah. So not really too much else to say. You'd pretty much always attack with the Vanguard first as a threat. Any crits to the Overlord column, Soul Blast for 21. Any powers to the left, because if you're against 11k Vanguard, it needs the extra power to hit the 21 to then do the extra bit of damage. But as I said, you've got to play smart. But other than that, anything else you want to point out, Aaron? I guess obviously,
in terms of strengths, I think that's pretty much it, because that's your optimal field.
Yeah. Other than that, of course, late game when you receive more of the damage, hopefully the damage wouldn't look like that. You just burn the flames, and off you go.
And then there was your situation of you've already used that twice.
Yeah, so then you just... you would ride and then go, well, okay, burn eternal flames, attack with the middle, and then attack and soul blast, so that hits 26 all of a sudden, yeah. But you'd only do that straight at the Vanguard. You don't waste it like that on the rear guard, because then you lose that 10k boost.
Yeah.
If you had anything else there, then like Gojo or something, feel free to burn eternal flames and swing at a rear guard, because
that's also another thing.
Well, it depends again, because
well,
I think the optimal thing really is to attack the Vanguard first and add any triggers to it, and then swing at the rear guard.
No, I'd always.
But what I tend to do, as long as it's barrier breaking, bar behind it. So this would be swinging at a 8k unit. You ideally want to have a bar behind it and go 19 to a 9 or 24.
I
sorry.
know, obviously. But what I'm saying is that
but if it's
I
not,
have seen
I think it's
lots
too
of
easy.
people burn the eternal flames, and then they go 16 to rear guard.
No, don't ever do that. Always use the boost.
That's what I was trying to get at. A lot of people I see do that, and they just go 10.
Well, it depends. If it's in a stand build, fair play. But it's just you taking a risk. But I tended to go for straight at the rear guard, just to neg the extra 5. If they don't guard it, then it's going to stand, and I'll go the other side. And it's just, if they can't guard it, I'm just abusing it. But if it's not barrier breaking, you should probably attack with the Vanguard first, because you can add any triggers to it, and then just swing it a rear guard, restand, swing it a rear guard for 21, swing it the Vanguard, and they're like, that's not good. Other than that...
Do you want to try the weaknesses here or in the next bit?
Quite a bit of a south, I think. Okay.
Change the setup.
Weaknesses. Probably riding that first.
And going first.
Yeah. If you have a good advantage, I'd say.
No, sorry, going second would be the worst bit.
You have a good advantage with the end if you go first. Simply because you get to grade 3 quicker. and it allows you to drop your hand and start using. But obviously the weakness being you wouldn't run a ride Flame of Hope. You wouldn't want to take Aeramo as a damage, simply because it's the only one I've got in the deck. Then as your grade 2 ride, the worst you can do is the 12k Swinger.
Is there optimal for the rear
it's
guards?
optimal for the rear guard, so you can hit decent numbers with, even if it's a promise behind it, still 16. And then if your luck's still failing, you'd have to ride normal Overlord and never find the end. So you're sitting there on that. Now I've won before like that, but I need a bit of luck with triggers and things to, keep up. Because the likelihood you're going to find at least a normal Overlord, I still had that combo type thing set up, and it just turns into a beat sticky build. Not really counterblasting. I just burn the Eternal Flames.
And that would be the main weakness of the deck if the end doesn't.
If the end never comes up, full stop. But a lot of decks rely on the Vanguard at least being found at some point. But you would have thought in a game with Aeramo beyond the Vanguard and things on Gojos, if you're really trying to find it, you'll eventually find it and cross ride. The deck slows down quite a bit at this point, but it slows your opponent down. So you're basically making people suffer because of it.
And if your opponent is not well set up to deal with the cross ride,
then you can make a comeback a little bit.
They start going for rear guards.
Yeah.
And that becomes the next problem.
Yep, because draw power. You can't replenish the rear guards as well. I'd probably advise being careful with what you drop, especially if your columns are a bit it's best to drop the ones first. and then replace
also
those
make sure, especially to do that if you're going against Vermilion.
Yep. Drop your...
So amount of times I've seen Vermilion go against a DOTE deck, and then...
Don't get me started on DOTE. Vermilion, right? Vermilion decks shouldn't do that well. They have their own little quirks, and they have good, it's a relatively good deck.
I'm just saying that once Vermilion hits a DOTE, it's usually, my rear guards are gone,
Yeah.
I'm actually struggling to replace these now. This isn't good.
Because of the amount of draw triggers I run, I guess. You could also say that I'll have, which is my worry about running so many draw triggers, you go, oh, I attack for 21 to Vanguard. Guard? It's like, I've just dropped 3 cards. When I'd just go, 15 like that, so it's only 2 cards. Or even 1 card for 10k, you'd end up dropping 2.
And although
so your hand would start dropping massively just to try and guard. And I've had some terrible games like that. But it's just the way the game goes. Other than that, there's not too much else. It's just
main weaknesses.
You've just got to be careful of your rearguard presence and things. It's good to threaten as quickly as you can because they go, guard the end. Guard the damage on flip because I don't want flipping that damage. What you use for Conroe. Obviously, because I use 7 grade 3s as well, you could argue that I might not be able to find one. But that's where the Gojos come in and the Eremo you search for.
Actually, there's something I want to bring up with that. If you are grade locked on grade 3, you choose to use Conroe. No, you choose not to use Conroe, sorry.
I choose not to run Conroe, use Conroe's effect, because if you think about how many cards you're going through in a deck, when you go draw, you draw 5, you'd probably draw 2, shuffle and draw 3, that's 3, then you go like damage check, do it, and if you're still not finding it, admittedly, if you damage checked like a grade 3 on that previous turn, then feel free to use Eremo and shuffle your deck. But if you haven't found one yet, the likelihood of one coming up's pretty high. So I'd rather spam Gojo and things to try and find one that's coming up rather than...
If you have Gojos, then yeah, okay, fair enough. But there's been times where I've seen it happen. You don't have a grade 3, you don't use Conroe, you drive check, and then you get all grumpy that you don't find it.
Yeah, but I could well have shuffled my deck. It's the luck of the game.
Now, I personally would go search it out, get an ammo out. That's 1 card less in the deck. Sure, I've shuffled it around a bit, but I have that drive check and ammo chance of getting a grade 3. That's my personal choice, and that was your personal choice.
Alright.
I want you guys, if you can, to comment in the section below.
What a pointless thing to comment about.
It's just curiosity. I'm curious.
You're curious to see if what people would do in grey lock situations.
Yeah, and this is one of the better situations where I can ask that question because you have a searcher such as Conroe.
Yeah, I guess.
Very random question, I know, but I want to know.
Alright. Other than that, is there anything else you'd like to point out about the deck? My ratio, obviously, as I mentioned before, regarding grade 1s was 1 less because I ran the extra Conroe. But something you would have seen and not something I've mentioned yet is I run 7 grade 3s and an extra grade 2 because of what I mentioned before of the the front row presence and things. You kind of need to find the end. Overlord's a backup and not a great one at that as a Vanguard, but it's because of the support as an Overlord unit. It's good enough for the deck. Okay, and that was my deck breakdown for the 3rd place UK Nationals Dragonic Overlord the End deck.
It's not that special, man.
Oh, well, if no one else is going to do about it, I am. I'm happy. I'm proud of the deck.
You spent how many?
Yeah,
I say hours. I think you spent days and months.
That's the thing. You've got to credit me in the sense that I've tried pretty much when I build a deck. Especially when I take it to Nationals, I try every version of it I can to try and find the optimal cards and the way of playing it.
For your playstyle?
For my playstyle, yes.
I want to stress that. For his playstyle.
That's fine. So, yeah. It obviously played well. It's always done well in competitions and things. It's the end, but I'm just saying that this build specifically has... risen to the challenge of a lot of other builds, At Nationals, I went against nothing really but Gold Paladins and mirror matches. And that just goes to show that at least,
Well, it's either the deck or you.
Yeah, it's the deck or me, yeah, I guess. Yeah, but, yeah. I'll continue on. So, thank you guys for watching. Feel free to like, comment and subscribe. and we'll see you guys later.